Welcome back everybody to another Modern Melee tournament where we bring you Friday Night Magic every Saturday afternoon. My name is Ginko and here with me in the booth is...
Hello everyone, my name is Marco.
Marco, how are you today?
I'm feeling great, how about you?
I'm feeling excellent. I'm excited for some more modern gameplay, live, in person, all of those good jazzes, and I really hope you can see the giant air quotes I just made because of our booth is, well, actually a closet worthy of Harry Potter. Just a friendly reminder, we have a policy of casual Ariel here, so there might be some takesies, backsies, maybe some missed triggers, but we will try to catch them and alert the players if we can. And looks like our first round is already underway, so walk us through here, what do we see?
So I'm quite excited for today's matchup. It's Jund Sagavan against four-color, Surveil, I guess?
Yes, this one I am actually very excited about. So what we have here on the left is four-color Surveil. This is a deck that uses Esper Mentor and Unearth and actually just splashes lightly red for DRC and some light sideboarding. It is, in all honesty, a Monastery Mentor deck, and it plays them and to a lesser extent also Sedgemoor Witch together with Unearthed and one copy of Lurrus in the main deck, actually. That's right.
Wow.
That card can actually be in the main deck and not only as not Pokemon, but a companion.
And on the right, we have, of course, the famous Jund Sagavan, the thing.
The money pile.
The money pile,
yes.
That plays a lot of good and expensive cards, and of course, it plays Urza Saga. I think this was a popular deck for a while, but now it is replaced by Black Red Rock.
Yes, so for those that don't know still and live under the rock, pun intended, the Sagavan is the amalgamation of Urza Saga and modern Jund. It is the surprise money pile playing Lurrus in the sideboard also as a companion. So the main cards, of course, being Urza Saga and Ragavan, who facilitate the mana base and smoothen everything up. And here we see Wrenn and Six joining the party and pinging down DRC, but on the other side we see a Consider exiling one of the four copies of Crippling Chill that go very well alongside Surveil mechanic. And yes?
It's a very interesting innovation. That's why I was so excited about this. This deck plays a lot of Surveil cards, and I was asking myself, so what's the payoff? And now we can actually see in the second turn already.
Yeah, the good thing is this deck plays mostly from the graveyard, as we can see here also one of the cards that mills, and of course the Archmage's Charm together with a Lightning Bolt and another beautiful island. On the left side and on the right side there is the Inquisition of Kozilek taking Lightning Bolt actually and not the Charm.
Very debatable choice by the Jund player. But
now we see why.
Now we indeed see why. I would like to mention something, and this is something that I'm very proud of. We fixed shiny cards.
Oh yes, actually we did fix shiny cards. As you can see, all of the cards now are very visible. Oh dang it, no. This is
Lurrus.
not the Lurrus. This is the one and only Lurrus in the whole deck that just got exiled by the Ragavan. This is why I don't like this card. One of the many reasons. I mean, all jokes aside, let's have a little banter about Ragavan and about the state of Magic the Gathering in general.
Sure.
So Magic is a game that has mostly three major resources. So life total, cards in hand, and what is the next one? Mana. And this little monkey does all of the three things, and it tackles all of those very, very important things at once. So it dwindles your opponent's life total, it gives you mana, and it gives you opponent's cards. And this is why something like Deathrite Shaman was banned. This is something why Uro was banned, because Uro makes all the same things but in the different order. So you get cards, you get life, and everything else, but it is basically the same thing. And I am a very big proponent of Ragavan being banned, but we will see what the time tells.
Well, there are few redeeming qualities to Ragavan that Deathrite Shaman didn't have.
Indeed.
First is, well, it's a mythic rare, and second is it's a legendary creature. And I do hope everyone gets the sarcasm here. I really do.
Great. No, but seriously, there are some redeeming qualities. As when Ragavan was introduced into the format got more back and forth in the sense that it didn't play only combo decks. It is now full of interaction, rightfully so, because without interaction there is no stopping the Ragavan, and once Ragavan connects, I know it's not the end of the world, but it really feels that way. It feels like the end of the world. When they got your best card and they get everything that you wanted to top deck, I know there is like 40 more cards in your deck, but it could have been a land, but still. You get 2 life points less, you get treasure, and the opponent gets a treasure, and they get one of your cards. It's not a great feeling.
Yeah, the other day I was playing a match, and the Ragavan hit me, and he revealed one-off Shadow Spear, and I was very sad about it.
It was a good game.
The opponent actually didn't even play it. He could have. They could have played it, but he just didn't.
Oh well. We see another Inquisition of Kozilek taking down another nil card from the player on the left, and there is only a Watery Grave and a Thought Scour in their hand. Now we will see another Inquisition, and we will see what this is. This is an unearthed and a fetch land in the graveyard, and a prismatic ending going to the graveyard due to the Inquisition of Kozilek. Now the player on the left is almost empty-handed, and the Sagavan player has several cards, including a Pirate Spellbomb, on the table. Now we will see what the 4-color player will do. Play a land and pass the turn. Very strong play.
That's very exciting. So, okay, let's talk a bit about game state. We digress a lot, but it doesn't seem like any player is in any particular any great advantage. Though the Jund player now put the Lurrus in hand, so that could be quite dangerous, especially for the Surveil deck with no cards in hand.
There is one card in their hand?
Well, yeah, one card, indeed. Pitting Nil.
Not sure what it names, but I do think this is the main deck configuration for the Saga, and not a great draw from the Sagavan player, but nevertheless, we do not know what it will name, but we can maybe figure it out. The good thing is for the 4-color Surveil deck that there is absolutely no pressure from the Jund deck, and it can entice its game plan as it sees fit. The bad thing is they had just their graveyard nuked by one of the anti-graveyard spells, and we see now Crippling Chill being hardcast for 3 life, and Faithful Mending being
surveilled into the graveyard, which is great.
This is where you want the Faithful Mending to be. And we see some life totals being changed. I do think that also the Jund deck has a life total advantage. I do think it's 12 to 11
Mm-hmm.
but it is still very close.
Well, we fixed the shiny cards, but today we don't have
The counters.
the live counters. So we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
One thing at a time.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Okay, so it's Jund player's turn, and he is fetching for a land. And let's see, he will probably untap.
Play Lurrus. Get
What?
something from the graveyard.
Yes, yes.
Something like this. You sound well. This is an interesting play.
Yeah.
If they have no removal for this DRC, which can, in all honesty, take over the game without any pressure and without any removal, there was a play available to them to untap with the Pirate Spellbomb,
Exactly.
play the Lurrus, crack the Pirate Spellbomb, dealing 2 damage to DRC, then replaying it from the graveyard and killing the DRC.
Exactly. That's just my train of thought. But maybe the player has some other ideas. Now we will see 2 mana tapped for. Okay.
Yeah, Wrenn and Six is the. There was no
There
delirium
was
in
no
there.
delirium.
That makes things a lot easier. And also, Wrenn and Six is by itself definitely much higher value play.
Okay, so what can the Surveil player now play into? He has the Fateful Mending in graveyard, but can he get anything relevant?
Of course. First, we see here one of
Cycle.
my very extremely pet cards and favorite cards. This is Dress Down being played. I do hope on the end step, or at least in the upkeep, so that Lurrus loses all of its abilities, including the ability to generate something from the graveyard and cycling in between those things. But they do not need a lot to go off. As we said earlier, this whole deck operates on Monastery Mentors. And once this gets going with something like Unearth, it is a whole lot of mess, and it is a whole lot of tokens smashing the opponent for 20 plus damage in one turn. So how this plays out is Unearth for 1 mana, or Snapcaster Mage for Unearth, getting back Monastery Mentor, and a flurry of Considers and other cantrip spells, and 3 or 4 monks are usually enough to take over the game. Now we see an attack with Lurrus that has no lifelink. Remember, there is still the Dress Down on the table, and the DRC still is a 1/1 regardless of the graveyard. Now it might be a different story, but we will see probably a flashback of the Faithful Mending at the end of turn exactly, and we will see what this brings to the 4-color player.
It brings 2 life.
Exactly, that is one of the redeeming qualities of this card. But I don't think there was... Oh, yes, there is a Monastery Mentor now in the graveyard.
Which is good, which is a part of the plan done.
Yes. Now we will see if there is also an Unearth to go with it. And hopefully several other spells. But we see only 2 cards from the 4-color player. It might be a little bit difficult.
Okay, so the Surveil player is checking both graveyards. Probably, maybe, checking for Delirium in
Exactly.
Jund Saga's player graveyard.
Or something to play out with Lurrus the next turn.
Yeah.
They're definitely... graveyard is being more and more relevant as older the format gets, and Modern is no exception there. Definitely with Lurrus, which is also in consideration for something to be banned, in my opinion. Why? I do think it does too much for too little value. What do you think?
It is true, but we debate this topic quite often, and I stand behind my opinion that although I think Ragavan is a bannable card, I also think it creates a delicate balance between in the meta with other bannable cards, in my opinion. And bannable cards would be like Urza Saga and Solitude. But of course, Ginkgo here has some other thoughts. So
we'll come to it a little bit later. Now we see a Snapcaster Mage being played from the hand, exiling. What is this? The white card above.
So the prismatic ending
Prismatic
exiled
ending, exactly.
the Lurrus,
Thank you very
if I'm
much.
not mistaken.
Thank you very much. And now we see Wrenn and Six killing the Snapcaster Mage, and now again Monkey and the Dragon Rage Channeler getting into the red zone. Thankfully, the Jund player cannot play the Archmage's Charm, but it is still a hefty amount of damage.
Well, he almost could have played it.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, he didn't.
We see another Faithful Mending keeping the 4-color player alive with the 2 life, always just inching up, and it is how the player stays in play, and we see a lightning bolt killing off the Wrenn and Six, which provides a value in of itself.
Well, little by little, he's coming back into the game. I think there is no delirium in the graveyard. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think there's not. If there is, then maybe.
I do think there is. There is definitely a planeswalker, an enchantment, a land, and an artifact that we know of, and this might spell the end of the 4-color player.
Indeed.
But we will see. There is still a game to be had because there is the flashback from Faithful Mending, and as we said, this deck can turn around everything from nowhere, but they do need the pressure.
Okay, and checking again.
Exactly, checking if there is delirium, and we see artifact, sorcery, instant, creature, land, enchantment, planeswalker. So definitely a plethora of card types for the delirium.
Dragon Rage Channelers on the board, 2 of them, looking very strong, looking very, very, very dangerous. And exactly. If I'm not mistaken, I did see a lightning bolt in the Saga in Jund player's hand.
Well, exactly. There is a lightning bolt there, which also Unholy Heat, which does the job as well, maybe a little bit better even than the bolt, which can also go upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And this will probably be, Dash Ragavan, Lightning Bolt, and 2 Dragon Rage's Channelers. This is a whole lot of damage, and we have it all on the first round, as it seems. Exactly.
Very good.
So 1-0 for the Jund Sagavan player, and now we are off to the sideboards.
Okay, very well. Interesting game 1. I would assume that game 1 goes to Sagavan often here. What do you think?
Well, they do have a lot of removal and they do have a lot of discard, so this is something that the 4-color player doesn't like, but there are also some redeeming qualities, and the best card in all of those 75 is definitely Unearth, that can bring back any of the very sticky threads from the 4-color player back to the game, and just protect it via counterspells, or not even with counterspells, but just several cantrips are enough for it to go off and have like 4 or 5 of those little tokens, Monastery Mentor tokens, that can be pumped up to 3/3s or 4/4s, and that is enough damage usually to take a player out.
Interesting.
Now, do you know, or can you tell us how does... so, I assume that the Sagavan is a known matchup and it is a known deck, right? And we do have something of... something that we do not know how it plays out in the 4-color Surveil matchup, but what do you think the Sagavan deck is bringing from the sideboard into the main deck.
The thing is, I don't know how much did the Sagavan player understand the deck he was playing against.
That's also true.
He did see Mentor because one Fateful Mending, if I'm not mistaken, put the Mentor into the graveyard. But again, this card is not it's not played.
Yes.
At least not.
Monastery Mentor is a card that, if you play it if you play fairly, is definitely a turn or 2 turns too slow. So now we have a lot of more potent threats that cost a lot less mana, and 3 mana in Modern is a whole lot. If you're not winning the game on 3 or 4 mana, then you're doing something wrong. But I do think that the Jund player is bringing in some more graveyard hate in form of Nile spell bombs or other things that can be fetched out by Saga and also drawn naturally, which is also a perfectly fine card. If nothing, it cycles.
I think that his or theirs decision making definitely was based on archetypes rather than the deck he was playing against.
Exactly.
And of course, the decision also may vary based on if you're on the draw or on the play.
Exactly, as well. And the 4-color Surveil player definitely has the brewer's advantage because nobody knows what they're playing. But as we talked already, there are some... as we see, there is a dress down, there is one Monastery Mentor, but no lands. Great hand, but one worthy of a mulligan. And the other hand, we do see a Dragon Rage's Channeler. I do think there is an Expedition map, several lands, and some other cards that they are holding very near and dear to their heart. One Tarmogoyf, as I saw. And this is a perfectly fine, perfectly capable hand from the Jund Saga deck.
And before we get into this match, I would like to invite you all to like and subscribe the video if you like the content. And of course, if you have any suggestions, please write down in the comment section. We will be sure to read it and respond to any and
all of them if we deem it appropriately. No, but it helps the channel immensely and it doesn't cost you anything. Now the second game started and the Surveil player is on the mulligan to 6, but I do think they have a pretty good hand. They're on the play and we will see what the turn 1 play is. They are fetching up a Hallowed Fountain and probably holding it up for something like Consider or Thought Scour. Probably. You never know. And from the DRC Ragavan player, we see a Blood Crypt as usually, and probably the Dragon Rage's Channeler is coming also into the play. Now, it is very important for the DRC player to get the Delirium. Do you think so? Or they can operate... a question. Would the DRC be good as a 1/1 for one that's Surveil? Do you think it would still be playable?
Yeah, I was thinking about this quite a lot. Well, it would change the meta, I think, somewhat, and perhaps some removals.
Yeah, so we see a Prismatic Ending taking it down, so it doesn't matter, but do continue.
Some removals would be a bit more viable that are not viable anymore, but were viable before Modern Horizons 2, like Lava Dart, for instance, Gutshot, and all of these things would answer Dragon's Rage Channeler quite more often. So I don't think this card would be this good.
But the thing is, they still answer it on when it is a 1/1. But you are definitely correct. In the late game, chunking for 3 in the air is still a great thing to do, and having something that is card filtering, if not card draw, is definitely also very, very powerful. Now we see a 4/5 Tarmogoyf that has probably instant sorcery, land, and creature, maybe something else.
Well, there's definitely that sorcery in Prismatic Ending that killed the Dragon Rage that could have killed the Tarmogoyf, but it's hard.
Yes, but yes, the name of the game for the Surveil player is just staying alive and surveilling, of course. But we will see how the game progresses. Now there is another land for the Jund Saga player and Mishra's Bubble being played. This artifact, unassuming very, very powerful with other synergies such as DRC, such as knowing what is on top of your opponent's deck, recursion with Lurrus and the drawing extra cards and other things that it facilitates. At one point, this card was a lot of money worth. Now it is a little less, but still a sizable chunk of money.
Yeah, especially for an uncommon, right?
Yes, and especially for a 0-mana artifact. Now we see Expedition map being played, probably fetching up Urza Saga in the end step, but we will see what the 4-color player does.
Okay, so 2 Thoughts Cover, or rather, one Consider, 1 Thoughts Cover.
And we see the Monastery Mentor being put into the graveyard.
Okay, now I'm excited.
Now the race is on.
Is it 1 mentor or 2 mentors?
I didn't see, but usually the only thing they need is 1. And while the player is considering, they have put the card in their hand. I do think it was a dress down that got put there, and we see a Flooded Strand being played. Now, this is only a game 2, and we see that there is only 17 minutes left. Might be something to think about, but we will see what the players will do now. Yes?
I think the Jund player is definitely in a good position. With a very strong Tarmogoyf, 1 win in his behind his back, and he can drag the game out. Perhaps.
But we see here the namesake card, the Monastery Mentor, being fairly played as a 3-mana 2/2 with no abilities right now.
and dead, perhaps.
Well, yes, definitely dead, but we also see a Path to Exile on the Tarmogoyf, getting in exchange a 1/1 Monk token that has prowess. This might be enough to pump it up by 3 or 4 or 5, and second of all, the dead Monastery Mentor is definitely not always in the graveyard. Now, we know this because Unearthed is the also namesake card of this deck, and it will definitely come in handy later on for unearthing this Monastery Mentor or the other one that we have seen being milled over. Now, for the Jund player's turn, what do they have in store? They just have been ramped by 1 with the Path of Exile, and they are just going to go and crack the Expedition map, go get Saga, and do all of that shebang with the Saga and the tokens. Now, what do you think? Well, Saga is definitely a very powerful card, but do you think it is being maybe a little bit overrepresented?
Perhaps. I already mentioned earlier in the video that I think this is one of the bannable cards, but my experience with the card is that there is a lot of answers to the card.
Exactly.
That being said, it's a card that needs to be answered, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, of course. It's a threat card that costs no mana and gives mana and creates creatures and fetches things from the deck, but jokes aside, I think it's a bannable card, but I also think that players are learning to play around the card.
Exactly. So this card is not the end-all be-all. It is definitely something to be considered about, but not to be scared of, because I will go on a record and say that this card is just okay in decks that cannot recur it, or the decks that cannot use the tokens it makes efficiently. And what I mean by efficiently is they are just a 1/1s or 2/2s, or in best case scenarios 3/3s, as we will probably see here now. Now the third chapter is about to pop off. Probably the Jund player will use this opportunity to make another one of those constructs, indeed, and they will probably fetch something up. But I do think that the 4-color player does have, actually, yes, dress down to kill all of those
Here we go.
tokens, and now we see the Saga is just a 1/1. It fetched a card, all of those tokens die because they are actually 0/0s without their abilities, and the Surveil player just got a fresh card in their hand from the dress down coming into play.
This is dress down is definitely one of the I think better answers in terms of answering Urza Saga, because it's not a card that's specifically tailored or maybe sideboarded in to answer Urza Saga, while other decks sometimes have to side in some cards. Dress down is, especially in a Reanimator, in Esper Reanimator, it's a main deck card that is very versatile. It does a lot of different things.
Exactly. You are not ashamed to put this card into your main board and call it a day, because
Yes.
first of all, it shrinks Tarmogoyf to a 0/1. Second of all, DRC doesn't have any abilities, and all of the other cards and all of the other creatures that are usually have a lot of text written on them now are just plain old cards, as Richard Garfield intended 75,000 years ago. Now, this was step one for the 4-color Surveil player to answer the Saga, and now they need to actually win the game. And we see this is a good start. Surveilling something from the DRC, getting a pump trigger from the Monk token, and getting a card for their trouble, and also some information in terms of looking at the player's deck. But will it be enough?
Okay, so the Surveil player passes the turn and draws the card for Mishra's Bubble. And he has 5 untapped mana.
Yes.
Probably holding counter magic.
Well, counter magic won't actually help here,
No,
because there are cards on the table that require immediate answering, and that is a 7/8 Tarmogoyf that has a Shadow Spear. So it's a 6/7 Tarmogoyf that has a Shadow Spear, making it a 7/8, and this is a very fast clock. But there is a Snapcaster Mage, and we know there is a Path to Exile in the graveyard, which it just gets rid of the Tarmogoyf for good without connecting, and the Jund player does not. Oh, they do search, but they're out of basic lands to search for. So this is the best Swords to Plowshares ever.
I want to ask you something. So,
Yes.
in your opinion, this deck obviously plays Path to Exiles, a card that has not seen much play, neither in main decks, no, even in sideboards. It is being played less and less. So, what do you think about the value of this card with the current meta?
Well, Path to Exile is a necessary evil for the white decks. And I do mean it with the utmost respect for the card, because once it was an excellent card, but you cannot play this card in your main deck and just expect to win games, because you are not getting a 1-for-1 with this card, which is the case for something like the Unholy Hit, because you are getting rid of the creature for your card, but you are also ramping your opponent for one
Exactly.
whole land that they can use multiple times. So this is not something that should be in your main board, but there are cards like Tarmogoyf, there are cards like um, Murktide Regent, and several other fetis that just need answering. And from a blue-white deck or somebody else who does not play Solitude because of reasons, being value, monetary value, or just the deck is not tailored to have it efficiently, they need to play the Path to Exile to answer those cards. And now we see another Snapcaster being played for the Archmage's Charm, drawing 2 cards. Very good play.
Very good.
And actually buffing the token if it matters. And that was the end step of the Jund player's turn. And now all of a sudden there are several cards in the 4-color player's hand and a lot of options, hopefully. One of them is a DRC, a fully powered one in that. And with its Surveil, it would be no time before they find something like an Unearthed or something else or another Monastery Mentor to play and close up this game. The time is of consideration, but there is enough still to get it all done. And we see Lurrus now being played and just a Mishra's Bubble to trigger all of those things once again. And another DRC is getting into the graveyard from the Surveil, and 2 Snapcasters going in towards the Wrenn and Six, and 1 token powered several times going towards the Jund player. And the Jund player is taking their time and killing one of the Snapcasters so that their Wrenn and Six lives again. And we will see what is next. Another Consider to pump up the Monk token again and to Surveil with the Dragon Rage's Channeler and another card in their hand.
Very difficult position for a Jund player, and with 9 minutes left.
Here we see actually the clock stopped for some reason. Maybe there is already time being called, but we will see. Now, do not forget there is also Urza's Saga on the Jund players part of the field, and this turn it is getting all powered up, and we see an unholy heat getting rid of the Lurrus, and the 4-color player drawing a card from the previous bubble trigger.
Okay, so Saga now has two counters, so it can make a token. But like you mentioned, this deck, and it is definitely, I think, one of the reasons why deck is not so popular anymore. It really doesn't utilize Sagas so efficiently, and to make the value. The idea was, you can bring back the Sagas with Wrenn and Six, but it takes so much time, so many turns, and this is modern. This is fast. It's a fast-paced format, and the deck is not scary with those Sagas, in my opinion.
Yes, so this deck has the inevitability. It has longevity, it has pressure, but it doesn't have scary cards. In my opinion, the most scary one of those is between Wrenn and Six and Tarmogoyf, which can go in this deck, can be as big as it gets. Outside Tribal, this deck actually plays all the other card types available. Instant, sorcery, creature, land, artifact, enchantment, and planeswalker. Did I miss something? I do not think so.
I don't think so. I think you're right on point there, and I think that you're quite correct with your assessment. But again, the deck doesn't have the burst.
Yes, exactly. One of the bursts comes from Ragavan. And as we said earlier, Ragavan is only good when it's really good.
Yes.
And when it's not really good, then it's just a mediocre 2-1 for 1. And I say that with utmost respect for both Ragavan and modern format, but when Ragavan is bad, it is really bad. Because, first of all, it's a legendary creature, so you cannot play multiples of them. And decks that do play them all usually play them in as a 4-off. So there are several times where a player can be stuck with several of them in their hand. But on the other hand, now we see Unearth bringing back Lurrus, which will bring back something else, and we see another Monastery Mentor on the field. And this is all good stuff from the 4-color player. Just like this, they have a board full of creatures, full of scary things that need to be dealt with, and fully powered DRC, an operational Monastery Mentor, and a Lurrus, all of them ready to attack and do scary stuff to the Jund player.
Yeah, I think. Well, we don't know. Well, we don't know how much time there is left in this match. Perhaps the Jund player has the idea of stalling now with the lifelink and the construct. So it's quite questionable though. Time is definitely not on the side of the Surveil player. So it's still anyone's game, in my opinion. I would be quite surprised if this game went to game 3 and
we shall see.
And they finish it. So we shall see. Definitely.
Yes, definitely something to consider is that the construct is only a 3-3 at the moment, but it will become larger 4-4, probably 5-5 if the Jund player has anything to get with Saga from their deck. And I do think that now the Snapcaster is attacking Wrenn and Six, and the DRC is attacking Face. I do not. This attack is very questionable for me. There is a Shadow Spear attached to the construct that is now 3-3, and it can just eat up the Snapcaster. Oh, I know why.
Why?
Can you guess why?
I'm guessing that there is some kind of interaction on the Surveil player side.
There is a merit to having a Snapcaster in the graveyard for Lurrus.
Of course.
Exactly. So, yes, and now we see
the trap is set, and the trap is...
The trap has been sprung.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
So... The DRC deals some damage. Where? To... Oh! What happened now?
Is this mistrigger? Because it feels like a mistrigger.
I do not know. Oh, well, it doesn't matter because...
Just down is played, so the construct would...
Exactly, construct would have died. I do think that the verbals were there, but the cards just stayed a little bit behind.
Perhaps.
So the dress down came down and...
killed
another construct from the Saga. But the Jund player still has the ability to search the library for an artifact with mana value 1 or less, and they are probably getting something to nuke the graveyard, such as the Nile Spellbound. Exactly. Yeah. But the dress down did its job splendidly and constricted 2 of the mana from the Jund player this turn. Maybe it will be enough, maybe it will not, but we will see. Meanwhile, there is still the Wrenn and Six bringing back the Saga, and I do not know why the Dragon's Rage's Channeler did not finish the Wrenn and Six last turn. This might have been a misplay, but maybe the four-color player had some crazy plan that we are unaware of, as we have seen with the Snapcaster play.
Interesting. Okay, so Shadow Spear is on the Dragon's
Rage's
Rage
Channeler?
Channeler, and apparently he doesn't have Delirium
I
because he's
do.
not attacking.
No, didn't the DRC just come into play this
Oh,
turn?
right.
Yeah. So, but it's now a 4/4 versus the other one, which is a 3/3, and they both need to attack. So the one on defense gets to eat the one who is first attacking, and we see at the end step. The Jund player, yes, will make a move and exile all of the graveyards and everything that goes with them, all the value that can be accumulated with Lurrus. But Lurrus did its job, and we will see another Thought Scour and a Surveil from the Dragon's Rage's Channeler, and all of a sudden there are 3 more cards in the graveyard, and the monks are all pumped up, and there is also something for Lurrus to gobble up and return back from the graveyard to the play.
Also very important, Faithful Mending in the graveyard that
Exactly.
can be flashbacked.
As we see it being done right now. And there is another monk, and they are all getting pumped up. And I do think, yes, they have 3 power, all of them. The big one has 4 power. DRC is surveilling more into the graveyard. And yes, the Jund player is conceding the second game. Now we do go to the sideboards once again, and 1-1. This is a close match, and we see there is a little more than 5 minutes remaining on the clock. We will have some extensions probably because they are on camera, but still, I do not think 5 minutes is enough to win or lose this game if nothing goes horribly wrong.
Well, yeah, exactly. Both decks are very, very
resilient.
Very resilient. Good word. Good description, but also not very fast. They're very slow. Very.
Yes, both of them have the insane draw of turn 1 or turn 2, some haymakers. For example, Thought Scour considering a Monastery Mentor right into the graveyard and then unearthing it on turn 2 and just winning the game that way. And from the Jund player, that's also almost always the case with Ragavan, which can win the game by itself by the sheer amount of value it produces. But we do not see a Ragavan from the Jund player's hand. There is a Tarmogoyf, there is a Saga, and there are some removal spells. And also, what is this? This is an expedition map. Exactly.
Expedition map being played in this deck, I don't like this version. No. Definitely, I think this spot can give way to much better cards. I would say that Nile Spellbomb could come into this place in main deck, for instance, with all the graveyard recursion decks that are being played in the current meta. But okay, perhaps there is some merit to Expedition map.
There is, but this might be a sideboard card for some more grindy matchups, something like this. And we see from the other side there is a DRC being played, and immediately a Mishra's Bubble being played and cracked for extra value, Surveil, and some information on the deck. But this, as we said, this is a grindy matchup, and this expedition map will come in handy, probably, maybe, if they do not stall and have enough time for it. But all of this consumes much time, and they do not have it. And we see 1 damage being taken to play 2-3 Tarmogoyf.
I'm not sure.
No, I do think there was 1 more card. Yes, there is definitely another Dragon's Rage's Channeler in the graveyard from the Surveil deck. Yeah, it's a 3/4. And there is a Hallowed Fountain being fetched.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some removal being played. We will see now. Exactly. Two
Okay.
mana gets Prismatic Ending and some Surveiling going, and I do think that this is Delirium, and
Mm-hmm.
the DRC is crunching for 3. Meanwhile, very noticeable, the Jund player has an empty graveyard.
Not something you want to see as a Tarmogoyf player.
Exactly, but not only this, but also as a DRC player, as all the synergies, Unholy Heat, which only deals 2 damage if it's not fully powered, but
Mm-hmm.
there is the Lightning Bolt to take care of the
Jump player
opposing
finds
DRC.
the answer to DRC, definitely.
Exactly.
Lucky because he had Unholy Heat. That
Yes,
that
that
was
was
useless.
was not fully powered. But there is another one.
Well,
There is another one, and yes, now the Jund player cracks the expedition map, going in for a second or maybe even a third Urza Saga into their hand, and they are ready and set for the late game. Unfortunately for all of them and for him, there will be no late game because there is a little bit more than a minute left on this clock.
yeah, the game plan for a Jund player it was definitely not something that would stand the test of time with 1 minute left
Yes.
on the time.
But maybe that's the best land that they can get, and they have all of their colors set. And if push comes to shove, they do have the inevitability with sagas, but we will see.
Mm-hmm. We will see, but again, what must happen for either of these decks to win?
Uh, Honestly, I do not think that the Jund player can win from this spot, not
Yeah.
with 40 seconds left. On the other hand, the 4-color Surveil player can win by just graveyarding and unearthing a Monastery Mentor. As we said, with a full grip and with several cantrips on the ready, it can power up an army of monks that just run over a player, and one Tarmogoyf is not enough to stop that. But we will see if that is the case as we go in.
I want to see that. I want to see that.
Me too. We see one of the Monastery Mentors in their hand, and the Dragon Rage's Channeler has to attack because that is one of the conditions of Delirium. And we see the time is up, the time has been called. They will probably have some extension up, but I do think that it will not be enough for either one of them, and we see a path to exile on the Tarmogoyf on the upkeep, as it should be, as they get a land into play tapped, which might matter, but I do not think so.
I would just like to mention that DRC surveilled 4th DRC and put it into the graveyard. So
Yes.
now there is 3 DRCs in the surveil player's graveyard and 1 on the board.
Yeah. So at this point, I do think that the 4-color Surveil player is just looking for the other monks and just hoping against hope to have something being done in the 5 rounds that they get from extension, and maybe some even time left to play. But as this stands, they have not done yet so. And importantly enough, they're stuck on 2 lands.
They are stuck on 2 lands. That's what I wanted to mention. They are mana screwed, which is not something that you want to be with a 4-colored deck. Any deck, to be honest, but especially this one. So it doesn't look great for either of them.
Yeah, so to be fair, this deck plays 3 colors as a splash, and primarily it's a blue deck, which is great for in this type of situations because the black color is only for unearths and maybe to hard cast some other cards that shouldn't be hard cast. But other things, the red splash is only for DRCs in the main board, and the white splash is for prismatic endings and faithful mendings, respectively. But they can operate on one or two colors very well because 80% of their deck is just blue. From all of the cantrips, from all of the counter spells, and from all of the other stuff.
We see Nile Spellbomb.
Nuking the graveyard, we do not have to deal with this. I still have my graveyard, says the Jund player. You don't have it, and the turntables have turned and tabled, and now we attack for one with the Saga. And the plan that we ridiculed for several minutes ago might now come to fruition as they make another one, and now the trap has been sprung and Dress Down is being played, and no damage has been taken. The 4-color player takes 2 damage to shock in a Hallowed Fountain. Now they have 3 mana. They are now firmly in the lead. Well, not in the lead, but they are not losing.
You think so?
I do think so. As long as this deck does not lose, it will win eventually, because it has the inevitability of Unearthed, which is probably the best card in the main deck and the sideboard of this matchup, because there is a lot of removal for both the DRCs and for the Monastery Mentors, but bringing it back for 1 mana is just such a powerful play.
I keep thinking about the time, but as you said, there might be some extensions that we don't know of. So, okay, I will forget about time. Let's just look at the game. Maybe still there is a chance for either of these players to win. Okay, so finding bubble with the Urza Saga.
Interesting. They find the bubble and not another graveyard hate spell. The Nile Spellbombs does the same thing, but so it cantrips, but it also nukes the graveyard.
Yeah.
I do not think that looking at one card from the top of the opponent's library is worth more than nuking the whole graveyard. And now we see why they didn't get the Shadow Spear, because it was in their hand the whole time. But yes, I do think that in this case, regardless that the opponent's graveyard is empty or almost empty, they could have had the now Spellbomb and not the Mishra's Bubble. And now we see a not so much used mode on the Archmage's Charm, still a permanent valuing of 1 mana or less. And I do think there is some debate about, some debate about the Shadow Spear, because it is attached to the DRC, regardless that the DRC is not the same, controlled by the same person that controls the Shadow Spear.
Exactly. So, but of course, the Jund player can reattach it.
Of course.
If he had 2 mana, he doesn't. My question is, does this Shadow Spear still give +1/+1 to the construct?
Yes, because it is controlled by the Jund player.
Okay, perhaps the players are also debating this, and we see a third hand enter the frame and probably
explaining all of the interactions.
Yes. Okay, this was a great turn for the Surveil player. This is a very strong Dragon Rage channeler for the Jund player.
Yes, we see now that the explanation is that this construct is in fact a 2/2 because it gets +1/+1 from itself being an artifact and +1/+1 from the Shadow Spear that is still controlled by the Jund player, regardless of it being attached to the DRC that is controlled by the player on the left. Now, the Shadow Spear itself is giving its bonus to the DRC, so the DRC is 2/2 as lifelink and trample. So they're both 2/2s, and now we will see what is coming next. So
Engineered
EE4
explosives.
0, as it seems. For some mix of Surveil.
This is interesting. If he pops it, if they pop it, it will give a
A little bit of
delivery.
Texas Bexes.
Okay, takes it back. Okay, now.
Yes. Now we see DRC attacking. I do think that there was a trigger also missed from DRC and Surveil.
Indeed.
But there is a Monastery Mentor and a little Monk token that could on the battlefield, and EE for 0 to clear this and probably all the other future constructs that are. Now we see the Shadow Spear being attached back to the construct and Inquisition of Kozilek being played. When we see a strong hand of unearthed Snapcaster Mage and Dress Down. Regardless what you take from this hand, you cannot poke a hole in it, because unearthed can get back Snapcaster Mage can get back unearthed, and Dress Down is just such a powerful card that it really doesn't matter where you go. And probably because Unearthed and Snapcaster Mage can get one the other back, you take the Dress Down.
Good choice from the Jund player. If there was a good choice, that was the best. Yeah.
And another Mishra's Bubble being played to pump up the construct. Will he attack or not into those Monk tokens? No. He will just see what his
drawing.
He's drawing. Yeah, he has a fetch land, and if it's something that he doesn't want, he can just crack the fetch land and get the other card, the unknown one. And if it's something that he wants, then he just needs to wait for the upkeep.
Okay, so this match is definitely going in the favor of the Surveil player, and he seems to be in a good position. And this is where the Jund Saga just falls off, I think.
Well, I do think so. Yes, as an engine, this deck is really powerful, but as individual cards, as strange as it seems to say that Ragavan and DRC and Wrenn and Six individually are not as powerful, in this shell they are not. I mean, not to be confused by bad, but on this board, what does a Wrenn and Six do? Takes back a land or pings a token? Great. The other player will just make 7 more of them. But what does Ragavan do? There are 7 blockers or whatever on the other side of the battlefield. What does a Saga do? Nothing. Has to wait a turn. Here we see Unholy Heat getting rid of the Monastery Mentor, but we know there is a Snapcaster and Unearthed in the hand of the 4-color player.
A very futile effort.
I wouldn't say futile, but something that you need to do.
Well, yeah, indeed. But again, I don't see an out for the Jund player. I don't see an out. I think that generally Tarmogoyf is a great card, but simply it's not good enough. It doesn't do enough.
And we see another Archmage's Charm taking the construct at the end step, I do think. Or and we have a concession. So the game goes in to the 4-color Surveil player against all odds and against the time. Yes. Actually a great game, a great match, and this does it. So
very good.
Yes.
Very, very back and forward and back game, and I really thought that the Jund player is gonna take the W, but it didn't happen. And With that being said, I do hope everyone who watched this video enjoyed it, and if you have any suggestions, comments, please do tell us anything you want
Yes.
in the comment section.